I'm Claire Parker.
And I'm Ashley Hamilton. And this is Celebrity Memoir Book Club, the place where we are taking pages and saying, how can we make these iconic?
Amazing. I love it. And if you're listening now, we are back from Australia. But if you want to hear how it went, if you want to hear our adventures, that is all on www.com.
www.com. The internet. At large.
Get into the void and seek it out.
You ever know about .coms? Start investing, baby. They're about to boom.
www.patreon.com/celebrity memoir book club. All of our Patreon episodes are there. And for $5, you get the back catalog of the last 4 years. So it's a lot of content for $5. Check it out if you're lonely or have a big drive coming up.
Yeah. Or you're curious.
Yeah, we welcome a curious mind.
We love a curious mind.
Ashley?
Yes?
If you were a celebrity, would anything from this week make it into your memoir?
You know? No.
Fair enough. Not every week can be eventful, and I respect the people who see that in themselves.
I had a very nice, even week, and not a single thing stands out to me.
I think that's the best way to get through life. Smooth like a brain. Look in the back mirror and just go, what happened? I used to do that joke that means you have no trauma.
Yeah, this week was not traumatic for me.
Good.
Can I tell you one really funny thing that happened?
Please. I was actually asking you to do that.
I went to this really random party in Bushwick, and we met this girl who, through a series of events, it came to attention that there's this long lost soulmate of our friend. They met at a party and had a matching tattoo, which, to me, that means soulmates to the max. One time I convinced myself that this guy that I was dating was my soulmate because we had the same phone password. I really fall for stuff like that. Anyway, so they had met at a party and just lost touch. And then somehow it came up that they knew each other. And then I saw a giant goth man after my friend left. And I was like, that was him. This person that I'd only heard one story about one time the hour before, I was like, I saw him. And she was like, what do you mean? And it was just vibe and instinct. And I was right.
Interesting.
That's really funny, right? We're all laughing.
I wish I had been there. I bet it would have made a lot more sense if I had been there.
Okay, you know what? It'll be edited out when I write it in the book, but who knows where it'll be in the episode. Could be here, could be not. Let me know if you hear it. Claire, how would you describe last week's chapter?
Okay. In my memoir, we'd be at the point where I've abandoned actually storytelling, and now I'm just at my listicle moment, which means I've run out of things to say.
Oh, I was in anecdote moment. I was in funny little story time.
Okay. I have something that I think stands under the new wave etiquette laws.
Okay. And we need to write them down because let me tell you what.
Nobody is leading etiquette the way we're leading etiquette. Nobody's behaving better.
Nobody's behaving better than us, and they are behaving bad, actually. I've noticed a lot of nasty behavior out on the town.
Okay, voice notes. Let's talk about it. How are you using your voice notes? Because I think there's actually two extreme examples where you cannot use a voice note. I think if it is in an emotionally tense situation, you're confronting someone with something you're upset about or you're apologizing, that cannot be a voice note. But specifically, you should not be asking for a favor via voice note.
Oh, absolutely not.
I just got a voice note favor request, which I would be happy to do, except for that because I was on my bike ride over here thinking why does it really just ruffle my royals that this is... that he did this.
It's because fucking write it down.
Exactly.
I'm doing you you're asking me to do you a favor and you couldn't even be bothered to type?
Exactly. I know that we've gotten pretty far in voice note science right now where you can scrub through them and they sometimes transcribe it. But for the most part, if you're doing a voice note,
it's because you're in a hurry.
Yeah, it is easier for you to not have to write. And I think that there are exceptions. If me and Ashley are texting back and forth and she's like, oh, I have crazy gossip. And I go, oh my God, tell me. And it's a long story. Again, she's not doing me a favor. She is sharing with me gossip.
I'm doing you a favor by delivering gossip.
So it's very kind of you to even explain it via voice note. Or if you're in a conversation and they're home. But the problem with the voice note is you don't know where people are in their lives. I would rather a random FaceTime than a random voice note because I'm consenting to the FaceTime, but the voice note may just sit there for God knows how long.
Oh, I leave voice notes, long voice notes, unsolicited. I leave them for ages. If we're not actively in a conversation where it needs to heighten to voice note.
Also, if you don't know what's going to be in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of opening up in an email you're dreading. Or I'm just if I don't know what this is about, and now I'm gonna have to give 2 minutes of you hemming and hawing till we get to the goddamn point. So someone asked me a favor, I'd be happy to do it for them. But this voice note was fully 2.5 minutes. And halfway through, I was like, I'm with my grandma right now. I actually cannot sit here. I feel physically trapped by this voice note because for me to get to the logistics of it all is me to take 3 minutes of my, just text me and ask for it. And if you're too busy to ask, like now you've asked for 2 favors.
Listening.
Yes.
And the favor.
Write it out. You cannot be too busy to ask somebody to give you more of their time. Anyway, so that's my hot take on voice notes. If you have other voice note like niches you'd like to talk about, I think I might post this on the Instagram because I have a lot to say about it. And I think I'm jogging some points in your own brain. If I hear correctly, I hear things coming loose in terms of thoughts you are thinking.
I hear some buildup shaken from the pipes. Speaking of building a new set of rules.
I know a young man who's breaking them down.
Yeah.
I actually, now that I've said young, I'm curious what his age is. Should I Google it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Law Roach was born July 20th, 1978. He's currently 46 years old. He's from Chicago. And this book just came out October 1st. So hot off the presses.
Hot off the presses.
We had to print it out because we got such an advanced copy. And I was worried at my mom and pop print shop that I would use too much of their ink. So I didn't print out the first 2 pages or the last 2 pages.
I went to a conglomerate. I went to FedEx and they have
I know,
ink.
Run them dry, baby girl. But but I worry about my local. Mine's just a mail company, and I wanted to leave some ink for the other guys.
Of course. So we've got this book called How to Build a Fashion Icon: Notes on Confidence from the World's Only Image Architect, Law Roach.
If you don't know who Law Roach is, and it's possible that you don't, he is a celebrity stylist. He is famously Zendaya's celebrity stylist, and they have had such an incredible rise together. He met with her when she was but a Disney queen, 15 years old, I think, when they met. I think he dressed her as a favor for, this will come up later, but it's fun just to get it off the top now, for Justin Bieber's Never Say Never premiere, which she recognized as a huge fashion moment for her. He helped her at Kits in LA. I don't even know if that exists anymore, but RIP to its cultural relevance. We will be posting a lot of images this week on the Instagram. This is an image-heavy episode.
So make sure your Instagrams are open and next to you for reference while you listen.
Yeah, it's a sensory overload experience. This is kind of like going to a movie, but 2D.
It's like one of those movies where everything's flying at you at once, except for it is still images and us talking.
You know how they deconstruct like a tuna cotto sandwich? This is kind of a deconstructed film. Anyway. So he architected her image. I mean, he really did help design her fashion iconness. And in doing so, as her star rose, so did his. And he is now dressing some of the top celebrities in the world.
Well, was.
We'll
before he retired.
Whatever the fuck that means. I don't know about you, but most retired people don't keep doing their job and then also add a book and then also, I don't know.
Yeah, most retired people I know don't keep doing their job and then add 6 more jobs.
I guess actually I do know a lot of people who are like, I'm retired. I'm just opening a restaurant for fun. And you're like, oh, okay. Snoozy times ahead.
My mom always says that. She's like, I want to retire. When can I be your manager? And I'm like, do you think being our manager would be not
a job? She's like, well, if you 2 idiots could do it.
We couldn't.
Anyway, so he does Celine Dion, Anya Taylor-Joy, others, famos. That's what I call famous people.
Yeah. I call them big ol' famos.
Some of the bigger famos. He's worked with everybody. Ariana Grande.
Mary J. Blige. Did you already say Blige?
No, but I was thinking her. He has become a household name a la Rachel Zoe, who was his inspiration. And now he's gone on to bigger things. I'm very excited for his next chapter. And this is a book that is a lot of things. And in some ways, no things.
I will say some of the things are good things and some of the things are no things.
It was a good 60 pages.
And only 160 total.
It was a short book, but not short enough.
I will say he stretched and not a lot though.
It's such an easy read that I'm not mad about it. It wasn't long enough for me to go fucking enough.
So I feel like some books we read when they're just trying to fill pages, they sometimes hit a point where they undo previous pages because they're just rambling. There's only one chunk of this book where I would say
enough.
You start wiping away the work you've done previously.
Yes.
The rest of it is either interesting bits or nothingness. There's one part where I say, stop this right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of books that I would love to read from Law Roach, and I think eventually he probably will get to them.
And there are a lot of people referenced here where I say, if they have a book, I'm curious.
Yeah, so let's get into it. This does an interesting thing where it has an introduction, The Image Architect, and it starts with The Council of Fashion Designers of America's Fashion Awards, November 10th, 2021. He is sitting there watching Zendaya, who he has worked with, be crowned a fashion icon. As Zendaya accepted her Fashion Icon Award, I couldn't help but wonder how we got here. I wasn't on stage with her in presence, but I had been her only stylist her entire career. Even in the acceptance speech, she called me her co-director in fashion. My fashion soulmate, historian, and constant inspiration. Thank you for pushing me to see all of myself and teaching me how to do so fearlessly. Zendaya was the youngest person ever named a fashion icon by the CFDA, joining global stars like Lady Gaga, Beyonce, and Pharrell. She's also the only one to have ever worked with one stylist consistently throughout her career.
And so one thing he says is the point of this book is to showcase how a fashion icon comes to be and how to replicate it, because he doesn't want to gatekeep iconography.
And you're never going to believe what the secret to being a fashion icon is.
Being an absolute revolutionary beauty
No.
with amazing outfits.
No, it's being you.
Oh.
When I sit back and think about it, the answer is clear. It takes being you. To be a fashion icon is about the confidence you radiate when you walk into a room. So he's going to help us cultivate that confidence and then in turn that fashion styling. And I guess by the end of the book, Ashley, this will be our second read through each. Well, you guys be the judge. Don't you shut your fucking mouths. Don't you judge us.
Do not tell me if I'm not radiating iconography. Just let me be. Just let me live.
You'll have to trust us. You'll have to trust our own opinions when we determine whether or not we are fashion icons by the end of this book.
I think we will be.
We've got 160 pages. Let's ride. So he says he actually trademarked the phrase image architect. And he says, I'm the only image architect, in fact. And now I'm ready to share my secrets with you. At the heart of everything I've ever done is my desire to amplify that confidence in people. And he talks about how he has always been like unapologetically himself. And he's always been naturally confident, but he believes it's a muscle just like anything else. Some people are born a little bit more athletic, but if anybody puts the time and the weightlifting in, they can be athletic too. Just like you can be confident. The secret to being a fashion icon is not a Vera Wang gown or a custom Valentino. You don't have to be Zendaya on the cover of Vogue or Anya Taylor-Joy accepting a Golden Globe. It's confidence. Ultimately, fashion isn't just about putting on a pretty dress. It's about creating a moment, one that is rooted in self-assurance.
So the thing that I like about this book is that it's not about blind confidence, which I think is rather toxic and not helpful. I think it's about developing the tools to further your own confidence. And so it's about saying, when you've put all the work in, you can be confident that you have what it takes. Like that is the crux of this book. It's not about just being like, stand up tall and walk into a place that you are deeply unwelcome.
So chapter 1, Let the Transformation Begin, kills me because it starts with, on March 14th, 2023, I announced my retirement. And it's just funny to me because, you know, all intros or all first chapters start with a, how'd I end up here? So we start in 2021 where his protege, Zendaya, is winning the Fashion Icon Award. And he's like, well, how did I get here? And then he fast forward, he goes,
and how did I get here?
Yeah, it's like, wow, how did we get anywhere? You're right. I was already confused and now I'm even more confused. But so it's the morning after the Oscars. He's on his way to walk a red carpet down in Miami for Hugo Boss.
I think he's walking a fashion show, a runway show.
God, I can't believe how many places celebrities walk. You know, I'm in New York City and I'm walking a lot, but they're walking more.
They're walking more. I'd love to see the step count on those guys.
The famos, they be stepping. Anyway, he posts the craziest Instagram of all time. The word retired.
To walk away from this career that I built while I was very much at the top of my game required so much strength and every ounce of confidence I had. I needed to put myself first. And the reason I could do that because I was confident that my skills would make everything work out in the end, no matter what.
So he posts this Instagram and then he does this amazing thing in his book that I'm just realizing now. He then quotes his own Instagram caption, which God bless 2024. If this business was just about the clothes, I would do it for the rest of my life, but unfortunately it's not. The politics, the lies, and false narratives finally got me. The fact is, I was in tears when I posted the news, but I also felt certain. So he's there, and Naomi Campbell is at the same fashion show, and she calls him into her dressing room, and she gets Edward Edenfull, former memoirist, Edward Edenfull, on the phone, and they're like, you have to stay in the game, please, for the love of God. What I don't think they understand at this point is that when he says I'm retired, what he means is like, I'm just redirecting myself. Like, I don't know what retired means.
I was hoping by the end of this book, we'd have a better understanding of what retired is. Even in terms of styling, I think he's still styling Zendaya. So there was no genuine parameter on what retired suddenly means, which, you know, is fine. But The fact that that's like the crux of this book, the fact that he reached a pinnacle of success that led him to retire at the top of his game, but retire isn't really a thing that happened. It's a bit confusing.
I don't think he's not working. I'm sure if you ask his siblings, is he busy? They'd say yes. Anyway, so then we're back to what makes him so skilled. And the key is confidence, which is something that we already did here.
We'll hear it also more.
Confidence is the belief in oneself and in one's abilities. It comes from the understanding that self-worth isn't measured by achievements, failures, or the opinions of others. Confidence is not necessarily determined by the people around you. Don't wait for people to validate you. Building self-confidence could be a multi-step process, but don't let it discourage you.
So then he talks about the confidence that Zendaya had when they were working together at the beginning of Zendaya's career.
This is interesting.
It's very interesting. So apparently he found this incredible outfit for her to wear to Fashion Week. She was not invited to Fashion Week. They just got her dressed and went to where the street style photographers were. And she stood up so tall and beautifully in a perfect outfit that then every single day of Fashion Week, they were like, what's Zendaya wearing? And she would go and walk in front of the street style photographers and then not even go into the shows because she wasn't invited.
He's so funny. He goes, I whispered in her ear, they aren't photographing you because you're a celebrity. They're photographing you because you're beautiful. I wasn't lying to her and I never would. It was the truth. And it was important she knew it.
Of course it's the truth. She's so beautiful.
Well, why was she it is so funny to like tell an already very famous young woman, also, you're beautiful. I'm like, well, that was part of why she got so famous. But it worked. She ended up being covered by WWD, the fashion police.
That small moment was the launch of a new street style darling with nothing more than some denim, a color-blocked coat, and confidence. Anyone can afford that.
She was wearing a white shirt from Acne. That's like a $700 white t-shirt. And she also is like a 6 foot tall dream.
Yeah. Okay. So tell your story about seeing her on the street.
Okay. I had forgotten this story until I was reading this. I don't know if it was early pandemic days or even a little bit before the pandemic.
It was when she was dating Jacob Elordi.
Literally when I was recalling the story to myself, I said, I think she was with a gay and a man. But I had forgotten who the gay and the man were. But I remember seeing paparazzi photos of them later and being like, that's who. Anyway, I'm walking through Williamsburg. It's a very empty day and I can't recall why. I was walking down the street and I look up. I'm alone on the block except for one woman is in front of me and she's wearing the most beautiful camel overcoat I've ever seen with like just most perfect hair. And I know I come off kind of perverted in some of these episodes, but I don't normally follow women. But this woman was just the back of her head. To quote one of the great films of my time, the back of your head is so ridiculous. Something about this coat. Now that I know, like I couldn't tell it, but I was like, the way that this woman is wearing this coat and the way her hair looks, I need to see what it looks like from the front. I was just like, if this is just the back, what else is there to? So I followed her. I think I even like went down the block and I doubled back. I was like, no, I have to know what the front of that woman looks like. And so I like caught up to her and passed her and kind of like coyly looked over my shoulder and it was Zendaya. And in that moment, I was like, oh, okay, well, forgiven, Claire. I was like, she is so magnetizing that I was literally pulled down this. If I had known she was Zendaya when I saw her, I would not have followed her. I would have left her alone. I just thought she was a woman in Williamsburg with a perfect outfit. And I like needed to know more about it. I needed to know like what could the front be of such an incredible back. And it was a wool camel overcoat. It wasn't like she was like some hot little mama walking down the street. Like I just was like, I need to know what the buttons are like. And I was like, okay, well, Claire, bow out. I think I had this idea I could replicate what she was doing. And then when I found out, I was like, well, no, you can't and you won't ever. I've been in New York City a long time. I've seen many a celebrity. I've never from just somebody's fucking hair been like, I need more.
But I feel like that speaks to this line where he's like, anyone can do a jacket, jeans, and confidence. That is just not true.
I became a person, I almost didn't want to tell the story because it's like so sickening to think that I followed someone down the street. Like when I say it, it sounds awful, but it was a very empty, I don't know. I just was like, I had nowhere to be. Why can't I know about an outfit? But that's the pull she had over me. Just from the way she wore a coat was something I'd never seen before.
And that's what I'm saying.
Sorry, guys. If you guys are like kind of grossed out right now, I agree with you. But if you had seen what I had seen, you wouldn't have not.
I guess overall, the message of this book, I agree with. But this idea that anyone can afford what Zendaya pulled off, I guess in that way, anyone can afford it because it's something money simply can't buy.
Yeah.
So like anyone can afford it, but like you have to be born with it.
Being born freakishly beautiful because it really was free to her.
Yeah. Like it doesn't cost money to be the most beautiful girl in the world. You just like also might not be.
There's also something so funny about him being like, she did her own hair and makeup. And I'm like, after only 13 years of being a professional actress, watching hair and makeup be done. You know what I mean? There is something about she wasn't just some rando. She wasn't his lil cousin. He just said, try on these jeans. See who it makes you. These aren't Sisterhood the Traveling Acne t-shirt.
Yeah.
Anyway, it does go to show that how you hold yourself is so important.
Yeah.
And that if you think you look bad in clothes, you're right. Because that kind of self-hatred is demoralizing you. And the more you feel bad about yourself, the worse it'll get.
Totally.
So try and claw yourself out of that spiral.
Try being Zendaya. Anyone can afford that. No, like it is the way you carry yourself, but also...
I mean, it reminds me of the Terry Irwin episode where she was like, I kept not grabbing the rattlesnake because I was afraid. And then Steve pointed out, it's because you're afraid. So I said, oh, and I stopped being afraid. I'm like, okay, well, if it was that easy.
Wouldn't we all not be afraid of rattlesnakes?
Telling me the problem is I'm not confident doesn't make me feel better. Imagine Law Roach in your dressing room being like, you only look like shit because you feel like shit. Like, I know, it's actually a much harder problem.
The problem is I am like shit.
What you can't see is the shit that's just pouring out of me.
Building confidence is a gradual process, Claire, that involves self-awareness, practice, and self-acceptance. And this I agreed with. Okay, that's the thing is I feel like this book really does not preach, like just stand up tall and act like you own the world. Like, don't. That's annoying, actually. You have to like gradually discover your value and then embody it. Because everyone brings something different to the table and everyone is valuable.
And I think he hints at it and it's there. And I know because of his success, the reason he can be so confident is he fucking knows his shit and he studies and he prepares. I was thinking about that interview Rachel Amandi did with Carla Welch, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rachel says, what do you do if a client doesn't like something you've pulled? And she goes, that never happens. I'm always prepared. And I think I get a lot of that from him as well. Like he says like, learn, read, practice. And like the best way to build confidence is to get good at something. The best way to get good at something is to like work really hard at it for a very long time.
Yeah. And even he says in the riskier things he's done, the riskier outfits he's designed, there's always been a less risky backup. We'll get into some of the bigger moments later, but one time he put Celine Dion in like a Ventemont Titanic.
That sounds right.
Sweatshirt. That actually is right. I actually worked at a fashion blog successfully and was never fired. But he says he like had this idea for her to wear it, but he didn't push that as the primary look. He laid it on the table and brought a lot of other looks that felt more in the line of what Celine Dion had worn previously so that she could go to those looks first and then say like, well, what's this over here?
I feel like, and then the other example, we're kind of rushing through this, but I'll be honest, there's not
a lot.
I think we have to follow the conversation rather than the book. Otherwise, we're going to just be saying the word manifest 100 times in a row. He talks about styling Mary J. Blige when she was kind of redefining herself in the public arena. She had just come out of a divorce and she was beginning her like acting career. And so he wanted to push her away from her former Mary J. Blige looks and put her in more like Oscar type outfits, like long gowns and things. And when she said, I know who I am and I know what I like, he said, say no more. And he pulled out a backup rack with all like Mary J. Blige vibes. Because what he does is he goes into somebody's past and he studies what they like, what silhouettes they're drawn to, who they work with, what their style is based on what they've picked for themselves. And then he speaks to the person. And he says, well, who do you want to be? And he helps you marry the two. But like, it's just so interesting that he would bring the entire rack of clothes of what he sees for her and then say, well, just in case you said no, I brought what I think you'd like for yourself already.
Yes. Like no one who is this successful is showing up on pure vibes. There is so much research and practice and study. When we looked at his age, when he started working with Zendaya, he was years into his career within fashion. He had run a boutique in Chicago. There was a lot of time to learn and grow and develop knowledge. I think that right now there's like this massive obsession with being the youngest, most successful person and just kind of like faking your way to the top. But if you fake your way to the top, once you get there,
you're a fraud, baby.
It's hard to maintain because you have nothing to stand on.
Well, something else that I really respect and admire about him is he talks about most stylists have like an iconic look that they push on all of their stylees. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I go and I meet you and I look at your history and I look at who you are and I look at what you want for your future. And again, he is a style architect. He looks at the foundation.
Image architect.
Trademark. He talks about when he worked with Ariana Grande and how he like elevated her signature look because he said, you've done such great work building this visual brand for yourself. I'm not going to come in here and change it. That would be a betrayal to your fans who have grown to love you. And like, what an incredible achievement and accomplishment it was that when she was it Givenchy? Who was it when she was like the face of for a minute?
Yeah, and they just used
her silhouette. To be recognized by your silhouette is like an actual mark of an icon. And to be able to build that for yourself at such a young age is incredible. Why would he come in there and like undo it? He wanted to age it up and work within her rubric. And I think that thing where you can go to people and say, well, who are you really? I'm going to help you be you, really does prove that he means that when he says being a fashion icon comes from like finding yourself and representing it faithfully through looks and moments.
I think I could recognize you by like a silhouette of a sharp hand.
Yeah.
I think you have an iconic hand speak.
Thank you so much. Well, you know, because I can't see very well, I recognize everybody by gait. Like I can't, if you're approaching me, I can't see anybody, but I know how everybody walks and moves. And that's why I think everybody is my dad, because at a certain time, old men just trudge. And I go, that guy's trudging. Is that my dad?
That's how I feel about my brother when I don't wear glasses and I'm like walking through Williamsburg and I'm just like, what's my brother doing in New York City? That guy has brown hair.
You know that fully 30% of men in New York City are my brother.
I know. No, I genuinely believe there are like 3 types of white men, and it's my brother, your brother,
and someone else's brother.
And I don't know, submit your brothers and we'll tell you which one it is. So then he does give tips for developing your confidence. 1, how you talk to yourself matters, which is true.
Don't say I can't do this. Say I will do my best and I can learn from any mistake. And that is something he does. He goes, look, I've had a lot of mistakes, but you have to take risks to try. And I think that is actually something that I have learned from TikTok. People shit on TikTok, but I thought all those bitches that just look cute every day just figured it out. Like they just like thought about it a lot and then knew it. I've watched a lot of you girls on TikTok go from dressing like shit to dressing pretty good.
And someday it'll be me. Someday I'll go from dressing like shit to dressing pretty good.
Well, I just didn't know that there was even an opportunity to evolve. I thought you just could or couldn't.
Yeah.
It had never occurred to me that some people are trying.
That's so true. I think everyone has a thing in that category. I feel like I was there with like gym stuff, like certain types of exercise. I was like, I can't lift weights. And then I was like, oh, people started with the little baby weights and then you get stronger.
Yeah. There's 1,000 things where I'm like, some people are just born knowing how to drive. And I wasn't. There's a million things that I'm like, well, she just had that. She just knew how to give herself a blowout.
And so you have to say, I will give myself a blowout and I will learn from any mistakes.
Yeah. This was my year of learning things. And what I learned is you have to water your plants.
That's so true.
Which I thought the rain would do a good enough job. Not even close.
It also doesn't rain that often anymore. So then you have to acknowledge and celebrate your strengths. If your first instinct is to say, but Law, what if I don't have strengths to acknowledge? I would say, push past that and dig a little deeper. Everyone has strengths, no matter how big or small, that are unique to you. Make a list of your strengths, skills, and past achievements. Reminding yourself of your past can give you more stability moving into your future. This, I think, is what a lot of people need to learn about job searching.
Ooh.
We get a lot of questions on Worm to the Wise about...
On the Patreon, www.com.
w.com/Patreon/Celebrity Memoir Book Club. We get a lot of people asking questions about like moving jobs, having a relevant resume, etc. And the thing is, even if you are switching paths at age 28, people are always like, but I'm 28 years old. How can I change paths now? People will be like, I'm 24. How can I change paths now? I've already had my first entry-level job. Nothing is ever starting over because every experience has given you experience. And so learning how to apply that experience to what you would like to do next is key. It's all about just like changing the wording and the perspective of what you want to do to like help you realize what kind of skills and power you have. And if you don't have those skills, there are alternative ways to get them that aren't just that job.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a skill that you'd like to vocalize, a strength?
No, I have none.
Yeah, well, we're exceptions.
I guess, okay, actually, my skill is telling people exactly what they should be doing and then never knowing what I should be doing.
Whenever people get mad at me for being so like bossy and know-it-all-y, I'm like, I wish I had me in my life. I wish I could tell me how to live my life as good as I'm telling you how to live yours. I would pay money for somebody to come in and tell me exactly what I should be doing the way I'm doing for you for free.
Oh, it's not so easy. Oh, I just sound bossy and dumb. How about you sound bossy and dumb back at me so I can figure out what the fuck to do next?
If only somebody would be as confrontational and rude to me so I could experience it and then I could know for myself if I like it or not. But nobody will do me the service. I will say, celebrate small wins. This is one of his pieces of advice.
Oh, we love celebrating small wins.
Except for this. Okay, so he's basically like any little thing. Get yourself a manicure, get yourself your favorite magazine, take a friend out for coffee, treat yourself. Do I treat myself? I have to stop treating myself, actually. Like the things that I'm calling a win is like waking up another day.
Sometimes me and Claire will be like, we woke up, made breakfast, and we're working by 11 a.m.
I mean, sometimes we get to the studio and it's like before we record, should we get a treat? No, we really shouldn't, but yet we do. Anyway, he says, you can even take a selfie and post it on social media. Make your caption, I did it, without divulging the details on what exactly, and let the comments roll in with people congratulating you. Okay. But let them wonder what you did specifically. If they ask what you did, you don't have to respond. Some details aren't for the public.
If you did this in my life, I'd kill you.
I will say, Law, this is really the Law Roach tricks to becoming insufferable. Do not become the kind of person who just takes a selfie and goes, I did it. Big wins, moving in life like a lasagna in a G. What was that? Moving like a G through lasagna. I don't know.
No, you're right. Moving like a lasagna in a G.
Listen, you do not want to post a photo of yourself and be annoying.
No, that's so annoying. I do want to say this one is also what I was kind of saying, learn tricks and develop skills. Like figure out what you want to be doing and then learn how to get there. If you don't have the skills to do it, you can develop skills.
Spell Pharaoh.
I can't. Can I tell you? I thought that was about the grain.
Can you spell either?
Yes.
Okay, then take what you have and go forth. If you know how to spell one version of the word Pharaoh, I think that's good enough for you.
Thank you. Can I say what the biggest shock of all is that I know there's two?
You went to 5th grade, Shirley. You went to 5th grade and you live in Brooklyn. You should know about both kinds of pharaohs. Let's not give ourselves too much credit here. You're vegetarian.
Small win, big mind.
She's going to put up a photo saying, another success. When people ask, she refuses to tell you that the big success that she knows about two kinds of pharaoh. There are no failures. I love this. Everything is just an opportunity to learn. He's a big, like, the universe has your back. It's here to protect you. If you don't get a job, it's because that job wasn't meant for you. If there's an obstacle, it's really an opportunity to learn. And I love that mentality
from a successful person.
Well, I love it. I think there's going to be obstacles in life. You're better off thinking of them as opportunities than not. But at some point, he says it about 3,500 times in this book. And I do have to be like, well, there is a genocide going on right now. Like, there is a level of being like, the universe protects, that you have to acknowledge, like, I don't know, some people really got a short end of the stick.
And even like separating from that, if you are constantly not getting jobs, if you're always not getting it, like at a certain point, that might not be the universe. That might be like a lack of preparedness.
Well, at what point is the universe not letting you have any success also a sign that you need to like move on?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like so happy this worked out for us, but my plan was at 30, I was going to have like a year of savings to my name and spend 1 year going as hard as I could at comedy. And then be like, and if I turn 31 and like there are no inroads, then at some point you have to acknowledge that I guess you just can't.
Yeah.
Not everyone can do everything.
Yeah. Developing a positive and resilient mindset will allow you to face challenges with self-assurance and continue to grow as an individual. And then the next one, confidence is a muscle. And this is what I think is like the value of this book. The high point of this book is reminding people that confidence doesn't grow on trees. Oh, and then it's about clothes and how wearing clothes that you feel good in helps you be more confident. But also in general, I do think that people want a shortcut to confidence. People want a shortcut to achievement. We talk about this all the time. That one TikTok I saw about the eclectic grandpa trend and how people want a shortcut to a life well lived. And everything is like a muscle. Everything you do in order to have it be from a place of authenticity, you have to grow into it. You have to develop in that lane.
If you want a little living room full of little trinkets from all over the world, from all of your travels, you just have to like wait till you've traveled all over the world. And that could be 65 years.
Yeah. And if you want to like be a strong and confident person who like genuinely knows what they're talking about, the first step is to know what you're talking about. The first step is not to be confident. The first step is to know what you're talking about and then have confidence in what you're talking about.
I want to share advice I got when I was starting out at stand-up that I feel like it's so hard to believe when you're there. But then as you look back, you're like, oh, that was so true. I'll say first and last name, Drew Dowdy, who was a comedian. I remember him saying to me, like, no, you're so, like, I felt so frustrated 2 months in. Like, what the fuck was I thinking? Being like, oh, nobody is like watching me do stand-up and I'm not getting booked and I'm so unknown, blah, blah, blah. Thinking like 2 months in, I deserved the world. And he said, you are so lucky that nobody's paying attention to you right now because you can like really experiment and figure out who you are and try things and like push the limits in all directions to get good. Because he's like, once you're famous, if people are watching and you fuck up, there's a lot more to lose. He goes, there's like never a luckier time in your life to try to find your voice than when no one's paying attention. So instead of seeing it as like a frustration or something that like you're owed or like you can't believe they are not watching you yet, you're so lucky they're not looking, because then when they're watching you and shit hits the fan, which at some point it will, you'll like have a bad outfit. You'll like have a joke that's, I don't know, you'll bomb, you'll put out whatever. You'll miss back when you could explore and like create without any
eyes.
Yeah. There's a real advantage to every step of the way.
So if you skip steps, you're losing a lot. And then we get into the power of style, the power of how you feel in an outfit. It helps you be who you want to be.
So he goes, this may be controversial, but I don't believe in trends and I don't believe in dressing for your body type. I believe in wearing what makes you feel like the powerful, capable badass you are. Okay, what isn't Zendaya's body type looking good in?
Yeah.
I am like, oh, are there things that Anya Taylor-Joy can't wear?
Let me know.
I would love to see Anya Taylor-Joy looking kind of bad. Show me her frumpy. I would just like to see. I'd love to see what you threw out.
Frump her down.
Okay, so now he's talking about how it's never too late to start over, which is a funny thing to put in chapter 1. Start over. We're starting first.
And this is about Celine Dion and her Titanic sweatshirt, where she had been known for a very specific style, but he had this great idea to kind of reinvent her outfits and her general vibe. And she was so excited about it and people went crazy. And now she's viewed as an absolute street style sensation.
And something so interesting is he goes, luckily I spoke to her directly because her team told me that she loves wearing a scarf with every outfit. And it turns out that's not true from her. It's just something that had happened. And so when he came in and gave her permission to like rediscover herself, be your own Law Roach. Give yourself permission.
Totally. Chapter 2, assessing your foundations.
So he's talking about having like a Sasha Fierce in your life, basically an alter ego that allows you to be a different version of your... But step 1, be authentic to you. Step 2, if that authentic you isn't sexy, maybe find an alter ego and be authentic to her. So he's talking about how like Kerry Washington has a real life Kerry and then a red carpet Kerry. And that Kerry's a little sexier. And his first outfit with her was like a real updated, sexy look where they used some tape and a belly chain. To be recognized for my ability to see my clients for who they are, to empower them and support them in owning their truest selves and flaunting it in editorials and on red carpets in the most outrageous and beautiful ways possible was all I could have asked for. And so he really is like, you have to do whatever you can to make yourself brave. And he says, like, there's things that I look at people and they go, no, I don't like that. And he listens. But if people hesitate, if people are drawn to something, but then go, oh, I couldn't do that, that's when he pushes them. And he's like, be brave.
Yeah.
And do whatever it takes to have that bravery moment. Fashion's about creating a moment. So now he talks about where he comes from. He comes from Chicago. And he says like the foundation of who he is comes from the fact that he has always been openly out and gay and himself and leaned into his femininity. And that he had all these uncles and a grandfather who completely loved him. And he's like, I never even had a coming out movement because there was never a time where I was in the closet. I just was who I was.
I lived as my truest and most authentic self from a very young age without asking anyone for permission to do so. And he says there was bullying and there was comments and he, grew up on the south side of Chicago. But overall, he was very just confident in his identity and chose to grow and develop as himself forever.
There's an ethos there. I came from a family of loudmouths and a culture of showboating. And he says that really prepared him for Hollywood because like there was this idea that you should, when you go outside, look your best. And he's like, what is a red carpet if not going outside and looking your friggin' best? And his mom and his grandma would take great care and like looking lovely. And when they had a big event the next day, preparing for it the night before. And his grandmother loved to vintage shop. And it just really taught him to look at things differently and see the beauty and to respect yourself by looking your best. Like the self-care aspect of dressing up and caring. You probably don't know this, but I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in business administration with a concentration in marketing.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either, but it makes sense. I mean, he is like such a business visionary. He's such a marketing genius. Like he really does architect an entire, I feel like image isn't enough. It's like careers.
Yeah.
The way that he is able to narratively talk about what you're planning to do with your career through an outfit is incredible.
Yeah. So when he was in his 20s, his mom passed away and he had to support his 2 youngest brothers. So he got a job bartending and he's like, just do the best you can whenever you can. He was like, I was the best bartender. I was incredible at bartending. He had a lot of pride in every single thing he's done. I could have found a job, something that paid 6 figures and included benefits and put my degrees to work, but something kept telling me not to. And if he had, he probably wouldn't have started working in fashion.
Yeah, he would have been comfortable.
Because the reason he got his master's is because his cousin had that same degree and like had a well-paying job. And he said, well, I want a well-paying job. I'll get that degree. And he just had no passion for it.
It was around this time when he was bartending that I started to get more interested in buying and selling vintage clothes. And so he would like go and buy things and he just had them in his trunk. And then I guess he would like resell things, or people saw what an eye he had and they would ask him to look out for certain things for them, or they would come to him just to like buy his extras. And so he started to have this like reputation as the guy who had an eye for vintage buying and reselling. In 2006, I decided to open a vintage boutique on Halstead at 18th Street in East Pilsen with my friend Siobhan Strong, whom I'd known since childhood. We called it Deliciously Vintage.
Our biggest break in gaining a national spotlight was in 2009 when Kanye West stopped in with his then girlfriend, Amber Rose. The press picked up on his visit and it helped put us on the map. So he was a workaholic. He was styling clients in Chicago. He was running this vintage store and he was starting to fly to New York and LA to style people there. So he was just doing anything and everything and saying yes to every opportunity. When people would say like, oh, are you based in New York? I have a project in New York. He'd be like, yeah, I'm based in New York. Can I say that is something that everyone should do?
Yeah.
If someone says, where are you? I need you to be here. Just say you're there and figure out how to get there later.
He has this godmother named Eunice who was from Houston, who's a very fashionable older woman, who said, is this really what you want to do for your life? And he goes, yeah, I love it. And she says, well, you're never going to win the game if you're not in the stadium. Why are you still here in Chicago? Is this where you're going to win the game? And he says it stopped him dead in his tracks and he decided to move to LA to pursue his career as a stylist. He knew that he was going to put everything into it and he was determined to be the best.
And so he says that's a huge part of this is figuring out who you are and what you actually want. Because had he wanted to run the most successful vintage boutique in all of Chicago, staying in Chicago and developing that boutique and maybe opening a site, like that could have been a career path. But realizing that styling and being a celebrity stylist was the path he wanted, he had to leave.
So he says, here's how you help start a conversation with yourself. Reflect on your values, identify your passions, define your goals, imagine your ideal future, and set priorities. Not everything can be pursued at once. Prioritize your goals and aspirations to create a clear path forward.
At the end of the day, you have to create a future that's in alignment with your goals. And you have to determine exactly what steps you need to get closer to your vision. And I think these are things that are so important and so often overlooked, especially in the age of social media, when there is so much opinion of certain paths. People a lot of times do things for what they think other people want to see or what they think is the right thing to do, but it doesn't actually, like I've gotten very caught up in certain things that don't actually align with what I want in my life, just because it looks like what you're supposed to be doing. I think that was before we had this podcast, a big place of where jealousy for other comedians came from for me was just like wanting to be more successful, but like not even knowing which direction I wanted that to be in.
Yeah. So this is when he meets Zendaya. She's 14 years old. As we said, she's going to this Never Say Never premiere. And he says that right away, she knew a lot about fashion. To have a teenager who was already so clued into designers and trends, who also possessed a movie star level of charisma, was refreshing.
It was very refreshing indeed.
She was so eager to learn and genuinely invested. Someone with those qualities who's also naturally beautiful is rare in this business. And I knew then that I was lucky to have met her. So they pick out this outfit and he goes, look, I'm going to look back and say, I don't know that we would have stuck by that outfit. It was very of its time. But at the time, it was quite a risk for Zendaya. And she was worried about the reaction people would give her if they saw her in such an eye-catching outfit. We will be posting this outfit. And he puts his hands on her shoulders and said as gently as I possibly could, who gives a fuck? If she liked it, that's all that mattered. I said it in the same way that I would have to any of my younger siblings. And that's how I thought of her, like little sister. And I didn't have to say anything else about it. She just like took it in.
The other thing is it should be an eye-catching outfit because if you want to like show up dressed exactly appropriately for an occasion, you can do that. If you want to show up and be a notably dressed person at that event, it has to be a risk.
So when he was working with Zendaya at the time, he was entering the fashion world as kind of an outsider. There's a real system in place for how you become a celebrity stylist. You intern, you assist, you build relationships, you do favors for one another, and then you come up and you kind of have like a network. But he was coming from Chicago, self-taught, self-educated.
Yeah, like through being an assistant to a stylist, then you meet the people who work in the various fashion houses that are lending clothing. So if you're never an assistant, you don't know the people who are lending items.
She wanted to be a true fashion star, and I knew that she could do it. She was beautiful, and the world needed to know her. My plan for Zendaya was for her to be a chameleon. The celebrity fashion market was crowded, with every girl being known for a signature look. I decided that we would go against that. Zendaya would be the ultimate fashion icon, able to wear any look anywhere. In the early days, that meant being a little aggressive. I would scour the looks other celebs had worn and then put them in Zendaya, which would make it onto the then famous Who Wore It Best columns. I'll let you guess who typically won. And he's like, we focused on switching up her outfits. See, I find this so interesting because it's so counter to what he was saying before of being like authentically you all the time.
Well, I guess what authentically is her is like looking amazingly in everything. That's who she is at her core, someone who just like looks amazing.
An
in
icon.
everything.
Yeah. And he recognized that and he said, you're not a girl with just one style. You're a girl with all the style.
Yeah.
But like, this is the stuff I wish there was more of. Like, I know that I had already heard that about him, about how he put her strategically in these outfits. I mean, the same way he strategically just put her in an outfit in front of the Fashion Week photographers. Like, he knew how to get her the attention it took to like get her name out there. But like, what else? I like know that he probably had 100 of these tricks and I'm so fascinated.
Me too. And the thing is, I think there's such a perfect synergy between him just like having these amazing ideas and her having a willingness to do these things.
Well, that's what I'm fascinated by. Like, I don't think the public perception of Zendaya is so not like desperate for fame. But when you look at what she did in order to become successful, she's a fucking workhorse out there. It doesn't ever read desperate.
Yeah.
And it's really incredible because like she's so easygoing in interviews that like what she's been doing behind the scenes does not come across.
Yeah.
Like this. So he talks about dressing her in a Vivienne Westwood outfit in 2015. She wasn't nominated for a movie or there to present. She was just there to look fab. Oh, sorry. Yeah, she was at the Oscars. She later admitted that she wasn't even really invited. An agent had an extra ticket, and from there, she snuck onto the red carpet. I mean, that is so ballsy. And when you compare it to JoJo from last week, who had a manager who said, you shouldn't go to the Grammys unless you have a good seat, even though JoJo herself was nominated for and then won a Grammy. The difference of approach to fame and how well it worked for Zendaya is so interesting.
Yeah, she says at one point, Zendaya went to the Grammys. She is not a musician. She had no business being at the Grammys. And people were saying, why is she here? Well, she was there to pull a look. That's the only excuse she needed.
So basically, he's just pushed her towards like not giving a fuck. She's really embraced it. And I mean, and he was right. Good for him. I guess me and Law Roach have a similar skill in that we know a beautiful woman when we see one.
And what came from it is that she is a fashion icon. Off the top of my head, there are several Zendaya outfits that I can think of that are the most incredible red carpet outfits I've seen in the last decade.
And I think one of the best dressed people right now is Hunter Schafer.
Yeah.
And he styles her.
Yeah.
I mean, she is someone who so consistently looks unique and perfect.
So now, crafting your style story.
So he talks about working with Anya Taylor-Joy. I have called her Anya Nicole Joy. I've called her Anya Marina. Like, I've called her a lot of things. So just it's a lot of little names.
I would never call her something else. I think she's so beautiful. I remember when I saw her in that horse movie and I said, who is she? Who is she?
You really showed your Claire abilities there.
Yeah, I said that girl who's starring in this movie, she's got something.
I just discovered this girl. She was on the red carpet of a movie she starred in.
Does anyone know this girl is so beautiful? She's just wandering about the star of a movie.
She should be on screen. Has anyone thought that?
Okay, here's my idea that she wasn't already doing. So she was in a movie, but like more movies.
Let me tell you from your lips to God's ears. It was a big moment for her. The Queen's Gambit. It was during COVID it came out, and all of the Oscars and the Golden Globes and the blurbs, they were happening in your home. But Law Roach said, not our home. I'm still going to dress you up to the nines. And so he had this vision of her as a sophisticated debutante who could have easily been from the 1950s or 60s, which perfectly tied into the Queen's Gambit. This vintage visual narrative was perfect for her award season campaign. And he really like wanted to dress her up. And I love this idea of a debutante. Like he was basically saying we were presenting her to high Hollywood society, which is such a perfect tie-in, and to have a 1950s so it matches thematically. He loves doing that shit. Yes. He loves being like, well, who are you playing? That's who you are forever. I call it the Lady Gaga method of dressing.
He does have this incredible way of creating a story, like a whole concept around every outfit. I do think it's gone too far now. The way that like people, when they're doing a press tour for one movie, the Barbie press tour, I think was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. But I think when he does it, it's good. The art of storytelling. I don't just create looks, I create moments. At the end of the day, I'm a storyteller. Oh, that's what I just said about you. Think of your style as your visual personality. It's the way you show up in the world. So understanding the energies and the vibes that are core to your personality is a huge part of the process. It's not just communicating things to others. It can also be a way to communicate or affirm things within yourself. And this I do think is very important. You're not just trying to say like, this is who I am. This is how I want you to imagine me. I think that in the way that TikTok got carried away with color theory, I think there are certain things that just like reverberate through someone where you go like, it's so true to who you are. It makes perfect sense. Like when you see Jane Birkin, you're like, everything you're doing and wearing makes perfect fucking sense.
Yeah, Jane Birkin. Such a good example.
She's like just a random girl, right? Who dresses so well.
That's how I feel when I see Serena Williams play tennis. I'm like, oh, just like hit the ball instinctively. Use her instinct. Like the way that she's just like flowing through a tennis match.
I mean, I think it's the thing we've been talking about on the Patreon a ton when it comes to consuming less, but more intentionally. It's like figuring out what actually makes sense.
Yeah.
For you.
So he talks about Hunter Schafer. He kind of uses one of his little icons to explain each point. Hunter Schafer, because she came out of a modeling background, like knows how to hold her body. And he says this is all part of Hunter's story, owning her body and her power. It's a skill and a strength of hers, and this look was the perfect way to show that off because it blended with the almost otherworldly beauty she possesses. Hunter Schafer is somebody who like knows how to stand strong and own her body. And like that is why she looks so fucking good all the time. He talks about how she knows how to like pose in every single outfit, and she's almost like an actress playing the character of each outfit.
The second thing is be so beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm getting confident first, and then I'm going to get so beautiful. And then, as they say, it's over for you, hoes. And by you hoes, I mean the people who think I look like shit. Once I'm beautiful,
you'll never think that again.
You'll be laughed out of town.
You'll all be sorry.
People said at 32, you can't just become naturally otherworldly beauty. And I said, well, you're thinking too small. I said, have you believed in yourself yet?
Yeah.
I'm manifesting.
Have you found your inner power?
I'm about to speak a visual language that's going to fucking cuss your shit out. Then you'll be sorry. And so he talks about like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
I guess the thing is it's harder than it sounds because there are other really beautiful people in Hollywood who are not showing up the way Hunter and Zendaya are showing up.
No, and I always wonder like in the same way that they make Selena Gomez sometimes have amazing pop music. I'm like, why can't you just tell them? Like,
you're all really beautiful and successful. Why don't you like look at it?
I guess like, I know I'm sitting here being like, what am I supposed to just act confident? But I'm also not an Oscar award-winning actress. I think if I was like a professional pretender, I could pretend to be confident for but a moment.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm nothing but a cynical little hack. So I'm over here saying, Claire, you fucking suck. And it's been done before. But that's what I do professionally.
Yeah. And you're so good at it. Stand in that confidence. So he talks about style and confidence and feeling great in what you're wearing.
Have you heard that yet? Can I say?
It's a lot of the same thing. Okay. But he uses the example of his mom's black dress. She had a black dress that she wore everywhere and it looked so good on her and she felt so good in it. And it was such an element of her style. And you need to find your black dress. Has anyone ever said little black dress to you? Anyway, find something that feels like that to you. For him, it's like a white button up.
He also talks about when he went from like celebrity stylist to stylist who's a celebrity and what it was like for him to have to push himself out of his own comfort zone. And so he does this photo shoot with the Interview magazine where he does drag. And he was like, I really was like pushing myself. And then he says, if you know me at all by now, you know I don't take myself too seriously. And I have to say,
I don't know that that's true.
What does he mean by that? So far, he seems incredibly serious.
Yeah.
He's like, I wanted to be the best so badly. I didn't sleep for 6 years and then I fell apart. And I'm like,
that's serious.
That doesn't feel jovial.
No. Anyway, so we're talking about finding the black dress, the thing that makes you feel great in your skin. You had to go through your wardrobe and photos of outfits that you felt good in and find the common denominator between the outfits that have made you feel really special.
Yes. This actually, as someone who did Old Loser in Brooklyn 75 Hard Day Challenge, I do think that was like the most helpful thing is seeing what you constantly gravitate toward.
Yeah. And the Alison Bornstein 3 words method, like finding the common denominators between the things that you reach for the most and the things that you're most excited about putting on and feel best in is very helpful.
So he says, go through, find what your like favorite go-to things are for him. It's this Amazon button down and then a Nike long black skirt. And then he says, and then add a power piece, like your mom's brooch or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says what everybody says, I'm an empath.
Oh, I think this is important. When you are defining your style, there should be no stress attached to these words. It should feel exactly like you. That's important. Okay, go back to your empathy.
He's an empath.
Oh my God, I love that.
And because he was an empath, it turned out working at a mental health organization doing intake work for new patients was like really intense.
Oh, that's like not hard for everyone. It's only hard for empaths.
The average person can go and day in and day out hear stories of abuse and trauma unaffected, but Law is different. And that's why he had to go into becoming a celebrity because he was too sensitive to do medical work. As would I be. You have to be so tough to do that shit, man.
Oh, I'm not tough. When I read a book that I have a hard time with, it like affects my mood because I'm not tough. Not because I'm empathetic.
No, exactly. I don't know. We need different words.
I'm weak.
Like, I don't want to say I'm too sensitive. I'm just too pouty.
I'm too malleable. Okay, so now it's about learning how to not be afraid to be unique.
This is where he talks about Ariana Grande and how incredible it was that she had that iconic silhouette. And when he met her, society was saying she needed to find a different hairdo. And he said, no, just update the hairdo. That's what we should all be striving for, that sort of singularity.
He elevated her look. He was like, instead of just wearing your hair up like this, what if you wore the sexiest boots in the world with your hair up like that? And boy, oh boy, did that do something for people.
And then he talks about the Mary J. Blige story where she said, I know what I like. And he said, say no more. And I think maybe as they built trust, he got her into some more of the looks he wanted. But he said it's about so many facets of your life. So he was looking at her as a soon to be like Oscar nominee. And she was looking at herself as someone who just got out of a divorce and wanted to like feel sexy and youthful. She knew who she fucking was. Mary J. Blige is goddamn iconic.
Yeah. Okay. So the most important part of this chapter is taking risks, having fear and apprehension, and then turning your back on that fear and apprehension. You have to say, no, I will not be afraid. Fear often prevents people from even trying. And it's something that just about anyone can experience. And that is true. I think if you look at the world around us, how many people have these dreams and these hopes for themselves, but they don't want to look stupid. I've seen it happen so many times. I actually saw someone recently, a friend of mine in the running community, say that she wanted to like hit a certain time and her boyfriend was like, I don't think you can do that. And it's like, well, then maybe she's not going to train as hard because everyone is telling her she can't. She can. And I said, yeah, you can.
You're such a good friend, Ashley.
I'm like a way better boyfriend than her boyfriend. It really like kind of took me aback because I was like, well, if anyone shouldn't be the person saying you can't do that, it's your partner. But the point is there are a lot of doubters and haters and it's very easy to listen to them. And so you have to push past it.
I love this. He says, it's important to remember that fear will not kill you. Staying stuck, meanwhile, will dim your light and prevent you from finding out what you're capable of.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
I love that quote where it's like, if you're afraid, do it afraid.
Yeah.
I know it's corny, but it's true. It's not about the first miss or the messy second try. It's about the 4th, the 5th, or the 100th time that you go for it and prove to yourself that you can do it. He uses the example of Megan Thee Stallion here. And after, of course, she took a few months off from the limelight because of what was happening in her public life.
In her private life.
Oh, sorry. But it became public and that was fucked up. Anyway, we stand with Megan always. She came back and wanted to like reinsert herself into the public eye, and Law helped her, and he had her wear her natural hair on the red carpet, and she was really nervous, but we'll post that look too. She looks fucking incredible. I mean, she looks so amazing. Good. And she ends up being called one of the best dressed people because of her hair. She wanted to wear a wig and she was nervous and he pushed her.
And he says that there are moments where he doesn't push people to take a risk and then it flops, but there are risks that don't always pan out. Sometimes you take a risk and it just does not turn out to be the most beautiful look we've ever seen in our entire lives. This is something that made me laugh, is he had to use an example of himself. He had to use an example where he was like, I wore this hair on the Met Gala red carpet. It's not necessarily something that I think if I had more time to think about it, I would have done. But, you know, you learn from everything. It made me chuckle a bit that he talks so much about how you take risks, not everything works, there are flops, blah, blah, blah. But he can't really talk about them because he's using so many examples of celebrities and people that he has these close collaborative relationships with. And so I don't think he can say, and that's where Celine Dion flopped.
Yeah.
He has to just be like, here's one time where I didn't look so good.
I think he's also fighting against his own reputation. Something incredible about him that we'll get to later is the way he was able to build his brand through like confidence and know-how. And so I think to like sit here and ruminate too much on the misses takes away from this image that I think the public has of him as like an absolute dynamo.
Yeah.
So it is like a fake it till you make it. And then even in the book, you have to be like, trust me, there were times I was definitely faking it, but don't look that way too hard. I love this quote. There's a lot of noise out there telling us how to be. Lean in, lean out, be feminine, be strong, become a girl boss or a boss bitch, but also be kind and gentle and take care of yourself, meditate, journal, and buy this lipstick. It's enough to make your head spin. In the age of constant connection and never-ending demands of our time and energy, the world expects us to be superhumans who can conquer the world and hang on even when the going gets tough. Don't listen to experts with these so-called rules. Remember, you create the rules of what works for you.
Beautiful.
I just love it when people acknowledge that telling people to meditate and take time for themselves is also another demand.
Yes.
Being and love yourself. Shut the I don't have time.
I'm sleepy. So then he explains how to let go of fear, which I actually appreciate because I think it's very easy to say, don't be scared. But what do you mean how? He references his own past. This is not very autobiographical. I get that this is a book about being an image architect and not about his whole story. There's a lot obviously left out, but he does mention moving a lot growing up, which I don't think comes through in the earlier little autobiographical chunk. And you have to just ignore the little voice of fear in the back of your head because it does not serve you. You have to acknowledge your fear, which I think is important. You're allowed to be afraid. Understand it. Repeat positive affirmations. Seek community support. Educate yourself, which I think is a really helpful step. Saying why am I so scared? Maybe you just need to know more. Stay present, which is also really helpful because a lot of times fear is projecting yourself into the future, into the worst case scenario. Challenge yourself, be kind, stay persistent, and realize failure is a matter of perspective.
He also says he went to a Tony Robbins convention and did that walk on coals thing.
This part is ridiculous.
Okay, but you know why I liked it? And he's I guess it doesn't hurt to walk on coals, but your mind tells you you're in pain.
How could it not hurt to walk on coals?
Maybe because of the distribution of heat and you're going so fast you can't burn yourself. Exactly. Your mind is fucking telling you you're in pain, so you'll feel the pain. But if you tell yourself you're not in pain, anyway, my point is, what I thought was interesting is someone as confident as Law Roach, who's I was born confident. I got more confident. I'm going to teach you to be confident. By the way, 3 years ago, I was doing self-help programs with Tony Robbins. I am it is a practice for everyone. There's work behind all of it.
Yes.
And you may not have what they have right now, but they did work and you can do the work too.
Yes.
10 years to be an overnight success. I mean, look at Zendaya.
Yes.
She did Dancing with the Stars.
And then became the most famous girl in the world.
And then she became Mrs. Dune.
I think that also him talking about taking those no's and just figuring out a different route is so crucial. Because he came in the fashion world through alternative routes. He was never a stylist's assistant. He never worked at a major fashion house. He had a really hard time getting clothes from big names. So creating these unique and daring styles is a lot difficult when Givenchy won't lend you a dress. But he says, okay, if the big names are not going to lend clothes to me, I'll find other clothes. And he started pulling vintage looks that were more accessible to him, and you didn't have to have an in at a major fashion house to get. And then he became known for pulling these amazing vintage looks. That's why Bella Hadid started working him. It's one of the things that drew so much attention to him in the first place.
And now everybody wants to pull a vintage look.
Yeah. Wearing something cool and archival is the most important thing you can do.
You will start to celebrate what makes you different rather than strive to fit in. You will learn that good style is a myth and that the only thing that truly exists is personal style. But let me tell you, bad style is real.
Yeah.
I've lived it. He also talks about the accomplishments that you achieve in your 20s do not necessarily determine your future success or happiness.
I love that.
People reach significant milestones at various times in their lives. I mean, I think he started working with Zendaya at 36.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit younger, maybe 34. But still, he was in his 30s when he started working with her. And then they moved up together. Embrace your uniqueness of the journey. Then he talks about becoming famous himself. And he goes, at first it was weird for me because I wasn't expecting it. And I can't obviously be taking photos with you if I'm here with Celine Dion. So then he came up with this little system of if he has his sleek hair, that means he's here to turn out a look. That's his Sasha Fierce energy. And then if he has any other hairstyle, it means he's trying to blend in. And then of course it turns out that didn't work, that people did not pick up on the subtle implications of his hairstyle and his willingness to engage with his own fame.
I will say, yeah, the people who are going to see you and scream at you and kind of invade privacy in that way are not paying attention to hair cues.
Screaming at a celebrity on a red carpet is not invading privacy. That's quite literally what the red carpet is for.
That's true.
I think he's talking about when he's working versus when he's himself. Because sometimes he is there to support Celine.
Yes.
If he's there to help Celine make sure she looks good in every photo, he can't stop and take a photo with you. Whereas now I think his relationship with Zendaya is they're more a duo. So they probably both have an assistant. But in trying to differentiate, he came up with this hairstyle idea. And he's even though it didn't work for the fans, it works for myself. It puts me in the frame of mind.
Yeah. And then he talks a lot about building your own iconography and how intentionality is so important. Intentionality empowers effective decision making. When individuals are aware of their goals and values, they can make choices in alignment with their overarching objectives. And then how to create these objectives and how to check and make sure you're in alignment. You have to ask yourself, what am I chasing and why? With all of the demand on me day in and day out, what is being compromised and am I okay with that? Do my values align with where I put my energy? What do I want my legacy to be? And how do I want people to describe me? So this next chapter is called Stay Inspired. And I think throughout this whole book, the overall themes I agree with. I think when we live in a world where there's so much media and there's so much stuff at all times, it's easy to be like, well, I'm constantly consuming things. But if you are not consuming things to get inspired or you're not like enriching yourself, it's very easy to think that you're expanding your horizons and learning new things, and you never are. I think this was a big problem for me in the last year, was like watching TV and like reading articles and watching TikToks. And I was very uninspired. And I had to do a lot of like, I'm still trying.
Yeah. Pushing yourself
to like think of things.
Yeah.
And to consume things that make me think. There's a constant stream of inspiration and education from so many sources at the touch of our fingers. And if you pay attention, you'll see evidence of these inspirations everywhere. He's always paying homage.
He talks about his favorite documentary, Mahogany, with Diana Ross, who's one of his favorites, and that he's always like watching old movies and asking questions. And he talks about when he was co-creative director for a set Zendaya did with Tommy Hilfiger. They did 2 major shows, one in Harlem and one in Paris. And the Paris one was inspired by the 1973 Battle of Versailles. And that was about like American designers versus Paris designers. And it really put American designers on the map. And the American designers used all Black models, which was like a first. And so, of course, they wanted to work together to like pay homage to this. And like just the way that like knowing your history and knowing what inspired them will always be this trove of knowledge and inspiration for you.
He worked on a show that explored the roots of ballroom.
I would love somebody to explain to me the difference between ballroom and drag.
Me too, but I want to watch this ballroom show for the Patreon.
It's called Legendary.
Yes.
And he got to be in it. I mean, this whole thing is like, here's some huge stars and some amazing people. Jokes about Miss Alexander J from America's Next Top Model.
Miss J. Alexander. And then Andre.
What did I say?
You said Miss Alexander J.
Okay. And then Andre J.
Yes. Who were 2 of his huge inspirations in terms of defining his personal style.
And he also says when people said, oh, Miss J. Alexander. Mm-hmm. Sorry. It's really confusing to have Andre J. and
Miss J.
Miss J. He talks about being told that Miss J was like a huge icon. And Law Roach was like, I don't just take people's word for it. I do research. And sure enough, Miss J is a huge icon. And let me tell you one thing about me. I'll take Law Roach's word for it. I'm like, well, someone did research. Was Law gonna lie to me in this book?
Why would he? He talks about getting very inspired by seeing Andre J around town and that they're just like a fashion giant.
It was the first person that like gave Law an idea of how Law wanted to dress himself.
Yeah, the first person who had long hair and also groomed facial hair. And it was just like a very cohesive look that felt so true to themselves that when Law Roach saw it, they were like, oh, I love that.
Ignite your curiosity, ask questions, explore, dabble in new hobbies, read, connect with people, take notes.
Okay, this one I thought was really important. Curate your algorithm.
It's so important. It's on like 2 or 3 different listicles.
The first time I saw it, I said, oh my God, that is actually a thing that people, like it sounds frivolous to say, but you really should. And then he said it a couple more times and I said, well, you already said that.
It's interesting. This chapter is really a lot about how he likes to dress feminine, but he in no way is dressing like as a woman.
Yeah.
Just like a heeled boot is important to him. He loves a floor length skirt. And I was like, totally, go for it. It's so funny what we take for granted these days and how quickly the eye can change. Because I know that when he was growing up, that was probably such a ceiling breaker that like seeing Andre J wear it, he was like, oh my God, like light bulb moment. I'm allowed to wear skirts without necessarily being like trans.
Or without like cross-dressing.
Yeah. And now I'm just like, yeah, of course, the straightest men I know wear nail polish. It's actually a red flag of an entirely different type.
Tom Sandoval. Then you gotta love yourself.
He talks about his relationship with his body and how he has like fluctuated in weight up to 100 pounds heavier than he is now. So he completely understands the difficult relationship you can have with your body, then especially when you add clothes on top, and especially when you add Hollywood and then the sample size and pulling looks. And he says like he did the Out 100 cover and he went shirtless. And I actually don't know how he looked on that cover. I'm going to be pissed because he's like, I decided to be brave and show who I am. If I look and he has like a 6-pack, I'll be like, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
But he really makes it seem in this book as if he doesn't look magazine cover perfect. And what he did was brave and helped him accept himself.
He also talks about his struggle with mental health. His mom suffered from depression
And addiction.
And he started to feel some of those patterns within himself, and having seen it in his mom, instead of saying like, well, this is just who I am, he like really used what he saw as an opportunity to like develop coping mechanisms.
I've learned that one of the most profound forms of empowerment we can experience is the control we have over our own lives. It's a declaration that we refuse to be defined by others' expectations or judgments. By embracing our true identities and sharing them with the world, we own who we are. It's transformative, really, and it can carry over into all aspects of our life.
He says that one of the things you can do, it's come up before in this book, it'll come up again, is prepare and like be confident in your knowledge and preparedness.
But then also in your body. He's like, if you're going to be on a red carpet, practice your looks in a mirror.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the, like, he's like, if you know how to hold your body for a photo, you can feel confident on a red carpet because you're going to get a good photo. And when there's like the hecticness of the cameras, when you're going into a situation where things are going to be kind of crazy, if you have practiced beforehand, you can just go to muscle memory.
Something so interesting that I think he attacks head on in a way that I admire is the unfortunate truth of fashion is like a body specific medium.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be confident in your fashion, you also have to be confident in your body. And like there is a physical aspect that you can sit here and say, know your history, pick out the cutest clothes, like find the colors you love most. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to stand up straight and feel confident in how you're standing. And there is unfortunately like a societal expectation of thinness and body standards that women specifically are under. And he of course feels it too as a man, but he mostly works with women. And so he has this interesting moment where he goes, I'll never talk to clients about their weight or their bodies. I never make a deal of it. I am very honest with the houses that I pull outfits from where I say they are bigger than sample. And he says, if they talk to me about it and say, oh, I've gained weight, what do you think? I will straight up say to them, things look better on TV and on camera if you lose a few pounds, but it's up to you. Do you want to lose weight or are you happy with where you're at? And I will dress you for however you come to me.
Yeah, like if you feel confident right now, then it'll be fine.
Yeah. And he's like, I'll dress you at whatever body you bring me. But he says for himself, sometimes if he's feeling like bad in his body, he has to take time and like let himself become confident again, whatever that means. Like either finding love for the body he's in or making the changes to be able to like his body again.
Yeah.
In the world we're at with diet culture, I feel like it's very hard to talk about bodies, honestly. The truth is, if you want to be a fashion model, there are certain body expectations. And to pretend that there aren't feels preposterous. But also that he's saying, well, I'll come meet you wherever you feel good about yourself is like all that you can ask of someone.
Yeah. He's saying like the main thing that I need to dress is like a confident person.
Yeah. Can you be confident in the body you're in?
Yeah.
If not, what do you need to do to be confident? And that doesn't mean starving yourself because there's a lot of extremely thin women out there who are on death's doorstep that still aren't confident. So
yeah, a lot.
Then he does a whole thing on how to make your closet your safe space. Make it tidy.
Yeah. I mean, not all of us really have much closet to speak of, so I skipped this.
Okay, this is actually one of my favorite stories that I heard him give in a different interview and has stuck with me as a creative. I like share it with all of my creative freelance friends. I think this is one of the most powerful anecdotes in here, and I think it is so important if you're somebody that charges your own wage to hear. He talks about coming up as a stylist in Chicago. There was a girl trying to make it as an up-and-coming makeup artist, and they'd be booked on a lot of the same gigs. After a few years, he noticed he was seeing her less and less, so he reached out to her and said, what happened? And she said, essentially, I wasn't able to make a financial go of it. And he's like, why? You were so talented. And he said what he did was every time he completed a project, he said, well, now I have worked with one more person, done one more job, and I have that much more experience, and you need to pay for that experience. And every single time you work with him, his price goes up because he's a little bit better at his job. What she did is she was scared to raise her prices. And so people would say, well, I worked with you for $75 last time. And then other people go, well, she only paid $75. And because she established herself as the person who was too timid to charge more, she never found the courage to charge more. And she became what he calls the $75 girl. And she eventually was priced out of her own life. She was not keeping her prices up to date with even inflation. And she could no longer live in Chicago and she had to give it up altogether. So he warns, do not become the $75 girl. People are paying for your experience and your expertise. And every time you grow, your price goes up. And of course, like you can't break a contract or anything, but do not put yourself in a box, know your worth, and you demand it. And if people can't afford it, then you cannot work with them. But you're better off knowing that you're more valuable than just like scramming for little things. Because like, look at pairs of jeans. If a pair of jeans says it's $500, people are like, oh, that must be a good pair of jeans. Like, it does work. You have to say what you're worth.
Yeah. And we talk about that all the time, where if you charge too low, then people are like, oh, then you must be an amateur. Like, I'm giving you then experience. And it takes a lot to be like, no, I'm a professional that you want to hire because I'm very good at this.
It's not always easy. There can be a fear that if you don't take the job that's offered, maybe there won't be another job. But I put my trust in the old phrase my family used to say, what's for me is for me.
He says there were occasional exceptions.
But like, he goes, listen, I had a dream that I was going to be the best stylist. And if you didn't believe that I was worth the best stylist money, and of course he got better and better, but like, if they can afford you now, let you be the inspiration to them. Like, let them go home and go, fuck, I can't afford that person's services today. But like, maybe if I work hard, I can hire them for the next project.
And another key part of this is that he is really fucking good and working really hard. Because I think I do see this a lot on like hairstylist TikTok, where someone will be like, oh, well, the industry standard is just this amount now. That's not true. A good haircut is worth that amount now. Not all haircuts. Like, you do have to provide the value that you're charging, but don't be afraid to charge your value.
Don't be the $75 girl.
Yeah.
And then he talks about self-care. He used to believe that like suffering for your success is how you proved that you wanted it. And he's like, I used to like really scoff at people who believed in self-care and resting, and to go, if you're resting, then you don't want it. But then it sounds like his body really was like breaking down. He said that there were times he would brag about being in Paris 3 times in 1 week. Times he'd wake up and be like physically unable to move. He went to the doctor for years and they could never get to the bottom of what was wrong with him. And it really was like he was just tired.
Yeah.
Everybody believes that they're above sleep until it catches up with them.
One question I have, because he talks a lot in the back half of this book about giving yourself a break and like not overworking, but like how much of his success came. I wonder this every single time someone who became very successful is like, give yourself
Show me the
break.
person who self-cared themselves to the top, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that should not be how it is.
But is it?
But is it?
And I think really it's more of a lesson of recognizing when you're at a place where you can.
That's what I was going to say.
It's more about like losing the scarcity mindset and knowing when you can say no. And I think that's actually why it's so important to raise your prices.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a certain point where you have to let your value weed out the nonsense. And I think like in stand-up, there's, you know what I mean? Like the amount of times that I would go to like Canarsie to do a 2-minute set where no one showed up. And I was like, okay, at some point I'm actually old enough to say like, I don't have to say yes to everything, because like it is more important for me to focus on other parts of my job or life.
Yeah. And I think that is the thing that I took away from this, is there is a period of time when you're establishing yourself that I do believe hustle is very important, that putting other parts of your life slightly more on the back burner are kind of more important. And you have to know when to reset and rebalance.
He does have this story, and I guess it must be later, but something that really stuck out to me is he was hustling so hard at one point that his uncle died.
He was hustling so hard he killed his uncle.
Sorry. He was hustling and his uncle died. They were separate but concurrent events.
Araca Celine Dion's scarves got him good.
He was pulling that Mugler bodice so tight his uncle just gasped his last breath. Anyway, sorry. No, his uncle died and he called his cousin and asked if they could push the funeral because he wasn't going to be able to make it, because he was like, I have something I can't skip tomorrow. And he goes, looking back, I'm pretty humiliated I even asked that. He was like, the idea that they should prioritize my work over me prioritizing my family, I like feel really bad about, and I'm changing. And I do think that's a good boundary.
A good example.
Work really hard, but like your hard work is not more important than your cousin's dad to your cousin.
Yeah. So I think that's an important thing of like, I do think there is a certain level of like putting shit on the back burner and hustling that is important in the early years. You also have to be able to know when to put it down for a second and go to a funeral.
I love this. He goes, I finally realized I'd been suffering for success. And then I realized that I didn't want to suffer anymore. I want my success to be linked to my happiness, not my unhappiness. Which I do think like can't always be true, but you have to recognize when you're at the place where it is and make that switch.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, you are your most important asset. Treat yourself with love and kindness, and always remember that self-love is not selfish, it's essential.
Totally. So then he talks about setting his sights on being on the Hollywood Reporter top stylist list because he wanted to be like Rachel Zoe and make a name for himself in the field. And finally, in 2017, he makes the list and he was one of the 5 covers. Then in 2018, he was number 17 on the list. In 2020, he was one of the top stylists of the decade. And in 2021, he was named the most powerful stylist in Hollywood, the first Black stylist to ever be on top of the list. It was a very big moment for him. He was just like Rachel Zoe.
Then he does a whole thing about how to manifest. I'm not going to talk to you about it.
Okay, this actually pissed me off because I feel like the whole point of this book was like having the skills and the preparation and the intention to like achieve what you have set out to achieve. And then to be like, I just manifested it. No, you didn't.
I guess I like hate the word manifest in lieu of setting goals and approaching them specifically.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You did not manifest Zendaya to be photographed by street style photographers. You showed up where the street style photographers were at Fashion Week. Like, that's not manifesting.
Okay, so he has this whole section called The Law of Attraction, basically about how he saw this coat. What was it, a McQueen red leather trench?
Yeah, he attracted a coat that he bought. He bought a coat.
Yeah, but it was harder than that because sometimes it wasn't in his size and sometimes it was sold out.
And now he doesn't even really wear it anymore.
But he loved it. He got it 60% off. I guess may we all
get a coat 60% off. I guess the thing is, I can be a bit of a woo-woo person and I don't like his use of our words.
Oh, you're part of the like official woo-woo community?
No, I'm not.
You're capital W, capital C, woo-woo community.
I just think that this is like an incorrect use of the terms that he's using. I don't even really believe in most of these terms, so I guess I'm exiled from the community.
I think it's a great mindset because I don't know what the alternative is. Like the alternative is being like, well, the universe is out to get me and I might as well not even try because it'll never work out. I don't know where that would take you. But I think in a book of someone this successful who has like done very like specific and intentional things to be successful, I think you can always put in a little bit of magic, a little sprinkling of luck, but to have multiple chapters being like manifest. Like I just can't hear the word manifest again. I think you get one chapter.
Well, also to have multiple chapters being like intentionality, goals, knowledge, and then be like, but it was manifestation. It was not manifestation.
An attitude of gratitude. Have you guys ever heard that one before?
I like gratitude.
And then take time to reflect.
I like reflection.
I actually do. He's like, you have to stop and think. That sounds goofy, but you know, we talk about Jada Pinkett Smith disease. Sometimes life happens so fast that you turn around and you go, oh my God, I've been traumatized for 20 years and acting out of a core wound that never got, like if only I had sat down to address.
Yeah. And I think gratitude people are a little bit dismissive of, but overall, I think especially in an ambitious field, there's always more, there's always something else you could want. And to sit back and say like, okay, these are things that I'm grateful for. Like these are things in my life that are good. It's very easy to put yourself into a mindset of like, it's never me. Why will it never be me? And it's like, well, lots of things are working. So maybe be grateful for those before you gun for the next thing.
Okay. So now we're in this chapter called The Renaissance about when he posted his retirement Instagram. And he's like, I randomly headed to the Hugo Boss fall winter runway show in Miami. People thought, what a lucky timing that I was walking the runway right as I announced my retirement from styling. But that was just totally random. And I'm like, okay, Mr. Intentional.
I guess I am just like, what does retiring mean to you? I guess he just retired from styling in general, but still styles some people and is doing a ton of other things also / instead.
Really random throwaway section about being like, for example, Lindsay Lohan. She's an adult now and I love her. And I'm like, is that your example of a second act? Because I don't think you came back to do Netflix rom-coms.
Oh my God. He says they hired me for her press tour for Falling for Christmas in 2022. I don't even know if I watched it.
Yes, we did. I think we watched it together twice. Remember, she's like a rich heiress who hits her head and then like falls in love with an innkeeper and helps him clean the inn. And then she realizes she loves being an innkeeper's wife. Do you remember we watched the whole thing and then at the end there's like 2 bloopers and she's so good in the bloopers?
Was there a daughter in it?
Yes.
Yes. Oh yeah, she was amazing in the bloopers. I love bloopers.
I just watched an old movie and I was like, they gotta bring bloopers back.
They do.
Okay, anyway, then he has a whole nother section about how the universe protects and provides.
And that's how he felt confident retiring because he knew the universe would provide.
I think you had a book deal on the way, I'd guess. I think you had like a lot of things lined up.
I think you were just like a famous fashion person with opportunities aplenty.
So this frustrates me because I just like, I'm sorry, I can't read a whole book about how intentional and specific and prepared and workaholic-y he is to believe that he just was like, I randomly retired to see what had happened next. I do believe that he very strategically retired.
In order to be like, I am no longer someone who works for the stars. I am the stars.
Yes. And I think it was brilliant. And it was like headlines producing. And I thought that caption, because that's the other thing is he leaves out of this last chapter. He's all like, I just needed some time to take a nap and reflect and heal and find out about the next chapter. That caption made it seem like he had been done dirty and run out of the industry. To say it's because of the politics and the lies, I'm like, what the fuck is this about? Like, there is more to that Instagram that he is letting on. And I also believe that it was more planned than he is letting on. And so I'm frustrated with like that lack of honesty, because maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I believe he's like actually an image architect and a genius. And he knows more than anybody in Hollywood how to elevate a brand, how to develop an empire. He is like an empire maker. And you're going to tell me the emperor just like threw a tantrum and retired?
I'm sorry, an architect is not quitting a project while they are suspended in an elevator shaft.
Be for real. Law. It's short for Lawrence, if you were wondering. I've been wondering a really long time.
The decision to retire was about protecting my mental and physical well-being. I took time off to address important things going on with my body. I mean, that's good. I guess the thing is, I don't understand that, like, you could have taken a hiatus, but I get why he didn't if it meant adjusting his image to say, I'm going to retire, take time off, and then come back as a new version.
Because that seems like quitting, whereas saying you're retiring is like a way of saying no without saying no. I mean, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
it was a brilliant fucking move.
But act like it was brilliant.
Give yourself some credit.
Yeah. Yet to be this person who says like nothing I've done is an accident and then be like, this was so random. It wasn't.
So he says to step into your own Renaissance era and like reinvent yourself, remind yourself of who you are, get an idea of where you're going, start on your path, walk with a slight air of delusion. And
also once you've achieved a lot, it can be really hard to like throw yourself back into a hard path because you're like, well, I've worked so hard. Why can't I just coast now? We give up, we make excuses, and things just stay the same. But it's only you who can initiate the change to start the momentum going in another direction.
Curate your algorithm once again.
That's really smart.
Share your dreams widely, like publishing a book wherein he says here that his dream is to do documentaries and feature films. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I would say Greta Gerwig, a retired person.
I think it is smart to share your dreams widely so that people know that you're trying to do those things. And then bask in your new era. Once you're successful, say, great job, me.
And now he's doing great.
Living his best life.
He never lets anyone tell him he can't do something. His best friend in high school was like the valedictorian and he was like dead last in the class. And they gave this standardized test to kids they thought would go to college and they didn't even let him take it. And he threw a stink. And sure enough, they let him take it and he scored higher than his very smart best friend. And he said, that's when I realized I have to like demand what I want. Don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't do. Fight for your future.
Yeah.
Take a moment to yourself, speak your destiny, and then show them who you are. I, for one, cannot wait to meet this version of you.
I believe everything you do in your life is a step forward meant to lead you to the next destination. My grandmother's passion led me to vintage clothes led me to styling, and styling led me to celebrity styling and a fame of my own. And this led me to write this book. He says, I don't know where I'll go from here.
Yes, I bet you do.
You know where you'll go from here, but we don't know. And that's exciting for me.
So tell me, tell the world. Are you confident enough to call yourself a fashion icon yet?
No.
No. And I'm actually confident to know I'm not. I actually think at some point there's a lot of knowledge in knowing what you are and what you are not. And I'm telling you, dear listener, the chances of you being a fashion icon.
Some of you are.
Statistically 3. At most.
I think 7. Okay, Claire, how many wormtinis would you share with Law Roach?
I would be so fucking intimidated, to be honest. Like when he met Zendaya, he liked that she was curious and open to learning because she also was like the most stunningly beautiful and already very successful, talented woman. I'm open to learning from him, but I don't think like I'm worth his tutelage. I am just like happy to read his books from a distance, to be honest.
How fertile would you consider this soil?
1.9.
It was not fertile. I think there was some good points.
But can I say, I think as a person to look up to, like if you're going to throw your money away on something, throw it away on this. To me, this is no different than Jen Atkin.
Also, I think that this book could have hit me at a time where it would have like washed over me beautifully.
I was thinking about that because I've been thinking a lot about you don't read the book reads you and how certain books hit you at just the right time. But I think the better the book, the wider the net is for hitting you properly. And I think that is one of the tests of a great book, because I think a great book can find a lot of people from different walks of life at different points in their life and hit them purposefully. This book can touch some people. I don't know that it couldn't have been a listicle.
Yeah, it should have been a listicle.
But nevertheless, his existence is inspiring enough. This is like not his book. This is one of the many steps he's building to his next empire. And I am in awe of what he's done. Like I'm in awe of the way he can architect an image.
Me too.
Who are the fashion icons? Why don't you name them right now?
Oh, our 5-star reviewers, icons in their own league.